Oh hi. Verona, the city in the north of Italy, 2 areas. Venice, the administrative center of the province of the same name. It is located on the Adige River. The population for 2021 makes 257,000 people. Historical monuments and economic value of the city are connected with his history and a geographical location on crossing of tradeways. It is the important transport hub on the way from Venice to Milan and from the Podanski lowland to Austria, through Mountain Brenner Pass. Verona enjoys popularity at tourists from around the world. Attendance of the city for 2018 made more than 2 million. Tourists are attracted by monuments of architecture and cultural actions, among them, the annual Summer Opera Festival, which is taking place in the Roman amphitheater of Verona di Verona. On May 21 the City Day is celebrated. Patrons of the city are Saints Zeno of Verona and Piet Vronsky. In the territory of modern Verona, people since prehistoric times lodged in several settlements along the Adige River. Today scientists argue on when the pioneer settlement in the area was founded. Most likely, at the Emperor Domitian. Among other assumptions, origin of the city from Etruscan settlements and, at last, a hypothesis that the city was founded by the local people of Aneveniama. The period of blossoming of the city began with the moment of award of the status of the Roman colony to Verona in the 89th year BB. Romans built monumental buildings, some of which reached our days. In the 3rd century, the city was used as military base for protection against barbarians. The city was expanded and strengthened subsequently by order of the Emperor Gallian, who prolonged city walls. In 403 near Verona the leader got beaten. Alaric is ready during the first invasion to Italy. The 12th century were the rough period in the history of Verona. Taken Italy of Gotha in the 6th century were broken by Byzantines, who were forced out, in turn, by Lombards. In 774 the last king of Lombards, Desideri, was defeated against Verona by Charles the Great's Franks. That marked the end of the Langobardsky kingdom. Since then, throughout several more wars, the city was used as fortress. Romano's family dominated in it at first, then the city passed to family della Scala. 1262. Who considerably broadened the city and its environment. Since 1387 Verona began to belong to Visconti, then Carrara, and, at last, since 1405, Venice. Under the power of Venice there passed nearly 4 centuries of relative tranquility, with a short but bloody break. 1509-1516. During War of Cambrai League, when the city was occupied by imperial troops. In 1796 the city was taken by Napoleonic army, and in the 1797th in Campo Formigli to the world departed to Austria. On the Lunévilleski world. 1801. Verona was divided into 2 parts. On the right coast of Adige, the French part, on left Austrian. So proceeded till 1805, when all city passed under the power of France again. According to the decision of the Vienna Congress. 1815. The city of Verona was transferred to Austria and remained in its structure till 1866. For Habsburg, the city represented a key military facility which had to act as the buffer during attack from Piedmont. Under the power of the Italian government, the city passed on October 16, 1866 at occupation of the area of Venice during the Third War of Independence of Italy. In 1882 in Verona there was a flood. The Adige River flooded banks and flooded a considerable part of the city. In the next years, to protect the city from similar events, the strengthened coast were built. During World War II, Verona underwent air bombings from which strongly I suffered. In 1944 in Verona there took place trial. Chiano and some other the figures of the fascist mob participating in Mussolini's discharge from the power. During the post-war period, after the entry of Italy into NATO, in Verona command of the joint armed forces of NATO in southern Europe was placed. Strong military presence of the USA was felt in the city up to the end of Cold War. Today Verona attracts a large number of tourists thanks to the thousand-year history where the ancient Roman past coexists near medieval Verona-era Scalagraph. Verona's walls, which are put up at the time of domination Habsburg, still exist. In the city it is possible to allocate the historic medieval center. The districts of Veronetta and San Zeno entirely consist of buildings of a medieval era. In the center there are also later constructions. Renaissance, the 18th and 19th centuries. In some regions of a wall of country houses and palaces are built in Baroque style. The industrial zones of the Borgo of Roma, which arose at a turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, and, at last, the modern city follow further. Protective walls of the city were reconstructed at different times. In some places walls of the Roman Empire from which there were only ruins are still visible. Antique city gate, Borsari port and the port of Lione remained. From Aliodi Bridge towards the center there is well-remained wall of the 13th century with 3 towers, the most known of which is the Tower of the Pentagon and portoni put the sconces conducting on the main square of the city, Piazza Bra. On St. Peter's Hill there are walls constructed by family della Scala. Here more than 15 towers remained. The embankments from an external wall built by Venetians and also some bastions. Almost didn't touch the walls, forts and shaft constructed by the Austrians' time. During the Roman domination in Verona 2 walls of an era of the late Republic and, less known, but more remain galleons walls constructed by order of the Emperor in 265 for protection of the city against Alini were constructed. The Republican wall was over 900 meters long. In the 11th century walls on the hill to the east were expanded more better to protect the city. During the period between 1194 and 1224 the municipality constructed walls to the south from the city, along natural deepening which then was used as a ditch. The walls to the north from Verona constructed della Scala were strengthened, their length is increased, and several towers in addition were built. Soon after the great efforts on defense strengthening were made. In northern part was strengthened 24 towers and 4 gate, and, almost at the same time, expanded walls in the south. During the period between 1509 and 1517 Verona belonged to Maximiliana, but, upon return, Venetians decided to resume construction of walls of Verona. The first works began in 1523, and the southern walls Scala were remade, several bastions are added. In the middle of the 16th century San Michele worked on building of defensive strengthenings of the city. He built the port of Nuova and Portopolio. With the arrival of the Austrian troops at the beginning of the 19th century, a wall were repeatedly reconstructed. From 1830 to 1840 shabby sites are restored and new are constructed many. After the First War of Independence of Italy, 1848-1849, the system of strengthenings became even more difficult, especially on west side. In 50 years of domination, the Austrians constructed Franz Josephi's arsenal, the railway station of Port of the Bishop, monumental cemeteries and several other buildings. Before, the art image of the city was hidden between protective fortifications, but with the arrival of a new century and Verona's industrialization slowly began to lose the role as fortress. After World War II, in several districts started reconstruction of the city, trying to keep historically significant buildings and buildings. The city is located at the height about 59 m above sea level, lies on banks of the river of Adige in 30 kilometers to the east from Lake Garda. Because of proximity of the river, the city often suffered from floods, up to the largest flood in September 1882, which destroyed the most part of bridges and floating mills. The city administration took measures for expansion of the bed of the river and strengthening of coast that secured the city against floods. In addition, in 1956, Moritobo's tunnel, which in case of danger of floods is allowing 500 cubic meters of water a second from the Adige River into Lake Garda, was constructed. The tunnel reduced risk of a flood from once in 70 years to once in 2 centuries. In ancient Roman times, the city was the nodal center of the transport system of the northeast of the country, where 4 roads were crossed: Gallica, Claudia Augusta, Vicum Veronensium and Postumia. Today Verona is also important geographical node, automobile and railway tracks. By a scale of seismic hazard of Verona, it is classified in Zone 3. A low seismicity. In the neighborhood of Verona, suburban villages which are included in structure of the city as a result of an urbanization and demographic growth for the last 50 years now were long enough located. The city is subdivided into 8 administrative districts, which in turn are divided into 23 urban areas. Verona's climate varies considerably within a year because of Lake Garda, which is a river whose humidity and temperature are, as a rule, quite high. High humidity of air is the reason of frequent fogs in the winter, happening generally to sunset to late morning. Average temperature of July is above 23 C, and the average temperature of January is about 2 C. The bulk of rainfall is concentrated during the period since the end of April and prior to the beginning of June, and during the period since October and prior to the beginning of November, with peak in August. Wintertime, since the end of November till March, is less rainy, on average a little more than 50 mm of rainfall a month. According to researchers, in the 1st century of our era in Verona about inhabitants lived. During the first millennium, the urban population decreased up to 1,000 inhabitants. Exact data on population for the first time appeared in 1472. The number of residents of Verona constantly hesitated. Major factors of decrease in the population were climatic cataclysms, diseases, economic crises and wars. The end of World War II coincided with demographic degrowth continuing up to 1971, when the population of Verona reached record figures and made 266,205 people. Since 1971 the urban population was reduced, having made 253,208 people by 2001. Thanks to migration waves from the foreign states, now the population of the city gradually grows. As well as to many cities of northern Italy, at the beginning of the 21st century to the city citizens of other states moved to the permanent residence. It is connected mainly with the best quality of life in a northern part of Italy, than on the homeland of the emigrating citizens. The city is famous ancient Roman. Arena di Verona, the Arch of Gavi, Borsari Port, the Roman Theatre, and medieval architectural monuments. Castelvecchio, Arches Scaligraph. Numerous Romance and Gothic churches, palaces of Renaissance, the museums, Conservatory of Evaristo Felice Dall'Abbacco, and also the university. Near Verona there is Villa Sunflower, turning beyond the sun. In Verona there is an action of the play of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. Show to tourists so-called Juliet's house with her balcony and Romeo's house, Juliet's tomb, though with characters of the play these buildings historically have nothing in common. In 2000 Verona was included in number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Churches. Fanzina Maggiore. Fanzina Maggiore. 5th–12th century. Antique Santa Maria. 7th–12th century. San Lorenzo. 8th century. Santa Maria in Organo. The 8th century. San Fermo Maggiore. The 8th–14th century. San Giorgio in Brida. 11th century. San Giovanni in Font. 12th century. Santa Eufemia. 12th century. Cathedral. 12th century. San Giovanni in Valley. First half of the 12th century. Santa Anastasia. 13th–15th century. Sant Nazaro Eccelso. 1464–1483. Sanctuary of the Lourdes Mother of God. The 12th century–1838, see also Lourdes Mother of God. Ital. Russian. Museums. Archaeological Museum. Gallery of the Modern Art. City Museum Castelvecchio. The Museum Lapidary Maffei, a big meeting of antique monuments. Natural Science Museum. Capitoline Library of Verona. Economy. Verona is the transport hub on approaches to Brenner Pass in the Alps. The international airport of Verona-Villafranca functions. The enterprises of the metallurgical, mechanical, chemical, light, woodworking, printing and food industry, the industry of building materials work in the city. In Verona the agricultural fair is annually held. The important role is carried out by the Exhibition Center of Verona. The Belk Road which shares on Western Belk Road, Southern Belk Road, East Belk Road. The main station of the city, the Verona Porta station of Neuve, which is a part of 13 largest railway stations of Italy. The repair station is the Vescovo Verona Porta station. Opposite to the Verona Porta station of Neuve there is a bus station which connects the majority of city routes to railway transport. The main company of city transport of Verona Azienda Trasporti Verona Compagnia of Verona's Transport, which serves citizens 34 city routes. Opposite to the Verona Porta station of Neuve there is a bus station which connects the majority of city routes to railway transport. The main city daily newspaper -50 Arena, who is published since 1866, thereby being one of the oldest editions of Italy. Since 2004 the newspaper Corriere di Verona is daily published in all province. As local insert of the national edition Corriere della Sera. The Nigrishan magazine. The oldest Italian edition about Africa is also published in Verona. The main radio station of Verona, Veron's Radio. Created in 1975. In Verona broadcast 2 TV channels. Telenuovo, who was created in 1979 and is TV channel with the greatest audience in the area. The second TV channel, Telerina 2, created in 1979. Sport. Verona hosted some football matches during the FIFA World Cup of 1990 in Italy. The most practiced sport in the city, soccer. The main city teams of Chievo Verona. His list plays in the Italian Football Championship. Hellas Verona, which structure plays in the Italian Football Championship. And Virtus Verona. His list plays in the Italian Missile Defense Series. The first 2 teams play at Marcantonio Bentegodi Stadium while the Virtus Verona team plays the home games in the Sports Center Mario Gavagnan Sinibaldo Nocini. An active role is played also by female soccer. In the Women's Italian Football Championship. Series A. The ASM team Verona. AGSM Verona. Plays. The most known Veronese volleyball club, Blue Volley Verona, who plays in the highest league of the Italian volleyball in a series. After local political reorganization in 1993, Verona is operated by the city administration headed by the mayor, which sits at the ancient building of the Palace of Barbieri. Palazzo Barbieri. Residents elect all city deputies and the mayor each 5 years. The current mayor is Federico Sporin, who was elected to a post of the city's mayor on June 26, 2017. Verona is also the main town of the province of the same name. The provincial administration sits at Palazzo del Governo. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.